All right, everybody, what's going on? How y'all doing? Welcome to today's edition of Swag Talk, the show we cover the swag inside and out. And I'm your tour guide around the swag Seawells coming at you. And it is week 10, man. Can you believe the season is almost over? Um, it seemed like it just started. And for some of us, it's been a long season, but it's still always a good season, to enjoy some college football and swag football, especially. It's been a up and down season for a lot of teams, but we starting to near the finish line. These conference races are starting to heat up. And these separation Saturdays are pretty much here now. And this Saturday is a interesting Saturday because this is East versus West. And all East Division teams are playing at home. I didn't really realize that, but this is an East versus West weekend. 6 games, 6 East teams, 6 West teams, all 6 East teams at home. So well, 5 of them at home and one neutral site in their home state. So technically they're at home too. But that makes for some interesting things. There's some big games on the schedule in terms of impact in the West Division, especially. So we're going to talk about all these games in a couple minutes. But before we do that, we do have our Week 10 pick'em. Is the link is up. It will be in the description of the video. It's also on my Twitter, which is Swag Talk 76, and it's on my Facebook and Instagram, which are both Swag Talk. Don't forget to like the video, comment your thoughts, and share the video. And hit that subscribe button if you haven't done so already, so you can be a part of the Swag Talk family. And hit that notification bell to be alerted to any videos that I do drop at different times. Like we do a Saturday show pretty often now. Post game, we call it. If one of our teams lose, we call it therapy time. But it's also just a good way to wrap up a Saturday and have some fun. So if y'all haven't checked out that live stream on Saturday night after the game, hit subscribe and hit that notification bell, and you'll be let known when that video is coming your way. So with all that out the way, man, let's go ahead and jump into these games. First game on the schedule is Mississippi Valley Delta Devils hosting Prairie View A&M Panthers. Um, Two teams kind of obviously going in different directions. Valley is Valley. They've been pretty rough this season. I do think they played, and it's funny to say it in a loss, but I do think they played their best game. I think this season, this past game was probably the best game that they played all year. Maybe other than like the Lamar game. They were in this game against Pine Bluff till the fourth quarter, just couldn't seal a deal. Prairie View coming off of a non-conference victory over Texas A&M Commerce as their second Southland victory of the season, but in conference play they 1-3. So this game is pretty big for Prairie View, not necessarily um, for the race, but stranger things have happened in the West. So you want to be able to keep yourself in a spot where if some chaos happens, you can try to benefit. So you don't want to drop any games from here on out. But Valley's 0-4. They're looking for a win. They're playing at home. I think they're gonna come into this game eager to make something happen, but they just haven't really been able to get anything going on either side of the ball. The offense is last in scoring at 14 points per game. Defense is last at 43.1 points per game. Prairie View's offense is sixth at 23.1 points per game, and their defense is eighth at 33.4. Valley has really struggled offensively in all areas. Their last in total offense, the 254 yards per game. Um, they're 11th in total defense at 459 yards per game. Prairie View is eighth in total offense at 311 yards per game, and the ninth in total defense at 397 yards per game. The run game for both teams has been a struggle. Prairie View's at 99 yards per game, Valley at 83. So you have two teams who have really struggled to kind of move the ball on the ground, and that's gonna be hard for you in any game. Both defenses are pretty. Both defenses, try to get after you in the run game. Valley's run defense is pretty bad. at 235. Prairie View's run defense is fourth at 148 yards per game. The one edge I do think Prairie View has is their passing attack. They are fourth in passing at 212 yards per game, and they can hit the big play downfield. James Burns was a guy who kind of had his breakout game on Saturday, over 100 yards receiving, two touchdowns, two receptions. Um, so that's a guy who can go deep. He can break the big one. Kobe Caville is another guy who can hit big plays down the field. Uh, of course, Shamar Savage is a guy who can make some things happen. He leads the team in receiving with 25 catches, 431 yards, and four touchdowns. Trajan Spiller, another guy, over 20 receptions. I still think Prairie View's running game is the key to their team. I think the passing game with Jaden Johnson has been really good. Um, the last few weeks they've been getting better. Um, they have a stable of backs that can get it done, but Lamaje McDowell is kind of like the guy who's been getting a lot of the carries lately. Um, Over 230 yards on the season, three touchdowns. Also, Connor Wisham is over 282 yards per game. I mean, 282 yards and two touchdowns. And they're facing a Valley team that just they just can't they just can't get right. Um, they struggle on third downs at 31%. Prairie View's not that much better at 32%. Valley can't stop teams on third down at 51%. Prairie View's at 37%. So that's a little bit closer to average. Um, when you look at Valley, they give up. They give up. They've given up 22 sacks on the season, and they only have eight on the season. Prairie View hasn't really done much better with either one of their units. The defense only has 10 sacks, and the offense has allowed 22 sacks. So both teams are kind of struggling to protect the quarterback, and they're struggling to kind of get pressure on the quarterback. Valley Tajarian Williams at quarterback is a big guy. He can run the ball. He leads the team in rushing with 253 yards and four touchdowns. The Fabian Fance, a guy who can kind of be a change of pace. He has 188 yards and two touchdowns. Also, Jacoby Thomas is kind of like a power back for them, 114 yards and two touchdowns. When they go to the air, that's where a lot of their problems have come. This team has 16 interceptions. Last week, I think, was the first week they didn't throw an interception. Maybe they threw one, but they didn't turn the ball over a lot like they had been doing. Williams has nine interceptions on the season and only four touchdowns. Now the team as a whole only has seven passing touchdowns. Like I said, 16 interceptions. So they've really struggled um, with the passing game. Although they do have a nice three-man group in the receiving core. Nathan Rimbert is over 555 yards and one touchdown. Carrick Ross, 288 yards and three touchdowns. And Jackson Davis at tight end is a guy who I've been looking forward to see in action all season. He's finally coming on late. 15 catches, 180 yards, and a touchdown. So all three of those guys can make plays for Valley. They just have to find a way to get it done. Eric Campbell leads the defense with 49 tackles. He also leads the team with 6.5 tackles for loss. Dante Reed leads the team in sacks with three. Um, and this Prairie View defense, like I said, they've been up and down, but Aiden Jones is a freshman that's really lighting it up. He has 49 tackles on the season, 6.5 tackles for loss. Also, Bryce Turner, 48 tackles, four tackles for loss, and an interception. So the defense they can make some things happen. This team has been like a lot of teams in the West, kind of inconsistent, and I think I think Valley's going to come out and try to jump on them. I do think Prairie View is well aware of what happens if you go to Valley and you're not locked in. So I think this team will be locked in, and I think they win this game. I do think Valley's going to put up a fight, but I think Prairie View win this game 31-14. I think a couple of big pass plays will be the difference for the Panthers in this one, as their passing attack continues to strike downfield. and Valley just they just have had a rough go of it all season. Next game is Grambling at Bethune Cookman. Um, Again, kind of an interesting game, maybe a little bit more interesting than we would have thought at any other point in the season. Grambling coming into this game without Miles Crawley, who's out with an ankle injury. Um, that can shape this game. Grambling has really had some problems this season with their offense as a whole. They haven't given up a ton of sacks, but he Miles Crawley has taken a lot of hits this season, and I think eventually, you're gonna kind of wear down. But this is a team that on defense is susceptible to the big play. They're 10th in passing defense at over 230 yards per game, but they do a great job of turning teams over. And to me, if I had to pick a difference in this game, just right off the bat, it would be that Grambling has 21 takeaways this season, which leads the conference. And if they can turn you over, give their offense short fields, they're always gonna be a tough team to beat. If they have to kind of play, full field football, so to speak, it gets a little bit more dicey. They're only at 33% on third down, so they struggle to um, extend drives on offense, and they've only gone for it on fourth down 5 times. So if they don't get it on third down, they typically either punt or kick a field goal, depending on where they at on the field. So in that range, if you get them in the third down, then I think you have a chance, especially with a new quarterback starting in this game. This could be an interesting situation. Um, but you're facing a Bethune Cookman defense that gives up 46% on third down. So something's got to give. I do think Gramblin's going to lean on their run game really hard. They're at 113 yards per game this season. Bethune Cookman is right behind them at 102. Um, I think for Bethune Cookman, whatever is with Cam Ransom, if he's able to play, he should play. I think he is a difference for this offense. It's not obviously there's not a lot of explosiveness with this offense, but he's a guy who can open things up for you, and with his legs, and then he can hit that pass down the field if he needs to. But when it comes to explosive runs, this team is not really there. Their longest run on the season is 37 yards, so they don't really hit for a lot of big plays on the ground. Their longest pass play on the season is 70 yards. So, they have aired it out a little bit. They also have a 54 yarder as well. But this, like I said, this is a team in Bethune Cookman who just really has had a tough go of everything. They they pass the ball for about 161 yards per game. Um, they haven't thrown a lot. They've thrown 5 interceptions on the season, um, and compared to 7 touchdowns. But um, they're facing the Grambling defense that does struggle against the pass. Like I said earlier, 230 yards per game, and they will give up big plays down the field. But I think it's going to be up to Bethune to be able to challenge that. And Bethune is not good either against the pass. 235 yards on the season. Um, Grambling's offense is at 187 per game through the air. And like I said, we don't know how that's gonna be with a new quarterback. Whether they're gonna be a little bit more conservative and run the ball more, which I do think I do think running the ball is a very important factor for this team. Um, you got the backs to do it. Hargrove, um, Bradford, and Talbot, who's come on late, are all three guys who can get it done. Hargrove is at 376 yards with 4 touchdowns. Bradford 311 with 4 touchdowns, and Talbot 119 with 3 touchdowns. 119 with 3 touchdowns. Um, so it to me the Grambling rushing attack against a Bethune Cookman defense that just isn't good. Outside of getting sacks, which I say it every week, but this is a defense that gives up a ton of yardage, over almost 500 yards per game, but they are second in the league in sacks at 19. So I think it's a boom or bust. And like I said, they don't play well on third down. They have costly penalties, costly turnovers. They just can't get out of their own way at times. But their defense does a good job of generating pressure. But if they don't get home, then it's not a lot that's going to happen. Lorenzo Jenkins and Malik Huggins are really the two guys who lead this receiving core. Both of them over 200 yards receiving. Um, I just think Luke Sprague's a solid quarterback, but he doesn't give you a lot in the mobility department. And with a offense like this, I think you need that guy that can get out and get on the edge and make Grambling have to kind of respect that. Dennis Palmer is a young guy running back. I think you should know his name. You should pay attention to him. He's 64 carries, 271 yards, 4 touchdowns on the season. Um, excuse me, 271 yards, 4.2 yards per carry. He hasn't scored a touchdown yet, but I think he is due. But I just, like I said, I think Grambling is going to win this game. I don't think there's any other really way to put this. Um, Bethune's having a rough season, and they played a really good first half against Jackson State last week. They did show some flashes of what they could be, but I don't I don't think this is a team that can do that every week. Grambling, like I said, their defense being able to force turnovers is going to be crucial. Um, Now Bethune, they have 13 turnovers on the season, so they haven't really turned it over a ton. But Grambling is opportunistic, and if they can get there and make some wildcat mistakes, I think that would benefit Grambling extremely well. I do think this is going to be a tight game for a while, but I said it last week, it didn't come true. I'm gonna say it again this week. Hopefully, it do come true. I think this is the game that Grambling's rushing attack is gonna wear down the opponent in the fourth quarter, and they'll be able to pull away. Um, really disappointing game last week against Texas Southern, but you have an opportunity to bounce back, and this is a good game to do that in before you kind of hit the final stretch run. So I like Grambling in this game. I think it's gonna be close. I'm gonna say 27-20. Um, I think both teams are they're gonna go out there and scratch and claw and try to make something happen because regardless of where these teams are in the standings, it's getting late. So you want to kind of get some momentum, and this is a momentum game for both teams. Grambling, they're not out of the race by no means, so they can't afford to drop a game, especially not a game like this. But then you want to try to finish strong, so that's why you need to have this. And that takes us to our third game of the day, which is another game that has some implications in the West Division. In the East Division is not the same, but the opportunity to have a strong finish and maybe even finish second or third, depending on what happens with other teams. That makes this game big for A&M as well. And it's just the fact that you're coming off of a rivalry loss. You want to kind of get right, and so Southern, you just never, as Forrest Gump said, life is like a box of chocolates. You never know what you're gonna get. Southern offense is like a box of chocolates. You never know what you're gonna get. You don't know if you're gonna get the team that ran for almost 300 yards against Alcorn, or the team that threw for under 100 yards and against FAMU and ran for about 125 or whatever. So and no touchdowns. And so to me in this game, the pressure is on Southern's offense. They have to consistently produce. This is an offense that's dropped down to 19 points per game. And they're playing an offense that can really score the ball. They're at 29 points per game. Now Southern defensively, opponents are scoring 24 points per game, and those opponents are scoring 34. With a lot of teams, when I say a defense gives up a lot of points, you're kind of licking your chops, but with Southern, you just don't really know how they're gonna play game to game. And so, sometimes they may not even be able to take advantage of those opportunities that are there. And they're gonna have to play offense in this game. A&M's offense leads the league in total offense at 462 yards. Southern is fourth at 345. Southern is second in the league in total defense at 296 yards per game. They allow 4.9 yards per play, which is second in the league. A&M defense is actually improving. They're fifth at 352 yards per game. So that puts a little bit more pressure on Southern to try to figure out how to make some things happen. A&M, their rushing offense is fourth at 173 yards per game. Southern is sixth at 136 yards per game. Southern's run defense has been up and down. They've been prone to the big play. Now, a lot of Southern's problems in the run game has been in 2 or 3 games where they just, they're getting, they think they're getting gashed by teams who are solid run teams. And so this is another one of those tests. And a lot of times Southern defense wears down because they are on the field too long. And an offense like this, if you're on the field a lot, it's going to get ugly for you. But Southern's defense is at 154 yards per game, which is smack dab in the middle. A&M's defense gives up 144 yards per game on the ground. Uh, Now, the one matchup that I'm intrigued by is Southern's passing defense against A&M's passing offense. Southern was up and down in the pass game against FAMU. They gave up some big plays, but they also made some key stops. They got an interception. They got some decent pressure. They forced some incompletions, but later in the game they couldn't make the plays that they needed. Um, but they only allow 142 yards through the air, and they're facing an offense that's at 289. Southern does have 3 interceptions now. They were at zero up until like a week ago. So they've been able to make some things happen there. Um, A&M, like I said, they do have 9 interceptions. So they have had problems with turnovers. That is the second most interceptions in the league right now. But they have 13 touchdowns through the air. So they are still a potent offense. I think their offense gets a lot more dangerous when Xavier Langford is playing quarterback because he's a guy who can run, um, but he does have some issues with turnovers. Their defense, the offensive line has only allowed 12 sacks. Southern's O line is at 15, so both teams are not that far apart in that aspect. Both defenses are even in sacks pretty much. Southern at 16, A&M at 15. Um, Third down defense, Southern is second. They give up 30%. So they have done a good job of getting those stops when they need them. A&M defense is at 40%. Both teams are, they are kind of, similar in that aspect in terms of being able to, make a play when they need it. One thing about A&M is they are not scared to go for it on fourth down. They have 17 attempts, which is the second most, and they have 58%. Offensively, they convert 40% on third down. Southern is at 34, which is a byproduct of just that inconsistency. Right now, Southern is a team right now that's a run first team. Kobe Dillon, Kendrick Grimes, C.J. Russell, those guys all are capable of running the ball. They're all about the same height. They're all about the same weight. They all wear single digit numbers that kind of look the same when you look at them. So they all have dreads. So they all are like they have different styles of running, but when you see them, they're all kind of similar. Of course, Kendrick Grimes is the home run hitter. Kobe Dillon is kind of more the steady guy, and C.J. Russell is like the guy who can come in and change pace and make some big runs. Um, for Southern to have any chance in this game, quarterback play is key. Whether it's Noah Biden or Zay T-Set, whoever is out there quarterback, they have to move the ball. You had to hit those. You had to hit those passes that are there for you. And I know that sounds simple, But last week, one of the biggest issues Southern had was missing open receivers. Um, if you can do that, that helps. That helps loosen up a defense because fam, you started putting a lot of people in the box in the second half because they knew Southern couldn't throw. So you have to be able to open up that defense, and then your running game can click again. So the games where Southern's done well offensively, the run game has done well, and has led to the offense being able to use a lot of play action or any RPO type stuff and make a play down the field. But like I said, defensively with Southern, obviously Kelby Givens is the guy that most people know, 11 and a half tackles for loss, 4 sacks. But a guy who I think has come on extremely strong this season is Vince Page. He was a backup linebacker coming into the season. Now he's starting next to Derek Williams. He has 42 tackles, six tackles for loss, and 3.5 sacks. He's a guy who is everywhere. He's physical. He's gonna lay the lumber. So you definitely want to know where he is. Special teams has been up and down. Josh Griffin is a very good kicker for Southern with great range. He kicked a 50-yarder Saturday against FAMU. He's 11 of 15 on the season. Um, so he's a guy. Once you get into 40 plus range, you can count on him to come out there and get you some points. Southern return game hasn't been anything special, and that's something I think that's really hurting them. A&M, they can run the ball. Donovan Eaglin, 444 yards, 2 touchdowns. Ryan Morrow has 274 yards and a touchdown. Xavier Langford is at 140 and 5 touchdowns. Right now, I think if Langford is playing, I think his offense is at a different level. They have a bevy. I love that word. A bevy of receivers. Keenan Hamburg had 2 big touchdowns late in that game against Bama State. DeQuadron Welch has come on strong late. He's almost at 300 yards. Duke Miller is at 266. Jacoby Hewitt, who led the team in receptions last year in yards, 15 for 169 and a touchdown. Also Barry White at tight end. So they have a ton of weapons in the pass game. So Southern's definitely going to be aware of that. Um, and Cortez Andrews leads the defense with 52 tackles and 9.5 tackles for loss and 4.5 sacks. So he's definitely a guy you're gonna need to know where he is at all times. One thing I will say about A&M is they have fallen behind in games. Couple SWAT games they've fallen behind and made a big comeback. I don't know if Southern's that kind of team that can jump on you like that. If they do, I think Southern defense is strong enough to withstand that rally like Bama State and Jackson State did. But I kind of see this as a game um, where Southern is, like I said, they're gonna have to get outside of what they normally do, and they're gonna have to be able to score points. I don't think 17 points is gonna win this game. 21 is not gonna win this game. 24 probably not gonna win this game. 27, 28, 30 points is gonna win this game for Southern. Um, it's gonna probably be a shootout if they can keep pace. I don't know if they can. Obviously, for Southern, you want to slow this thing down, but um, if Southern forces turnovers and Bama A&M doesn't play consistent, which they've been prone to inconsistencies, then I think Southern has a puncher's chance. But right now, I look at it like it's tough to pick Southern right now because I just don't know what they're doing offensively. So I'm gonna go with A&M, man. I do think I think Southern will make a good go of it, but I'm gonna say 28 to I'm gonna say 28-19. I just I need to see this offense be more consistent before I can feel comfortable picking them to win games, especially on the road. Um, and to be a division contender, you have to have two units that can play. Half a team is not going to get you that far. So I think Southern needs to really find a way to make that work. That takes us to our next game, which is Jackson State and Pine Bluff. JSU homecoming, so you got a lot of festivities going on there. Pine Bluff a team who I think they have the ability to be dangerous, but they also are a team who has, they still have those young team issues where they don't know how to win. Valley gave them a good back and forth go. Um, they have, they've been able to hit big plays, but then at the same time they have those mistakes that you just can't make, um, and that hurts them as well. They're playing the Jackson State team who is rolling right now. They took Bethune Cookman's best punch, and they rolled with it. Um, JSU can run the ball extremely well, um, which they, like I said, which they lead the league in at 199 yards per game. Pine Bluff defense is they give up 198 yards per game on the ground, so they're going to be tested heavily in the run game. If JSU can run the ball, then obviously that's going to open up their passing attack, which is fifth in the league at 210 yards per game. Um, I say it every week. JSU crosses 150 yards on the ground, they win this game, no questions asked. But Pine Bluff, their run game is at 119. They do have 16 touchdowns, so they have put the ball in the end zone with the running game, even though they haven't really gotten a lot of yardage. Um, JSU defense only allows 112 yards per game, so it's going to be tough for Pine Bluff to move the ball. If I was to say Pine Bluff had an edge somewhere, is in the passing game, which JSU gives up 194 yards per game. Pine Bluff is at 240. I say that, but at the same time, I still think JSU has the edge even in that matchup because JSU does a really good job of getting pressure on a quarterback. They have 22 sacks on the season, and Joshua Nobles has been a guy that's been wreaking havoc on teams. In the past game, he has 8 sacks on the season and 10 tackles for loss. Reed Pulliam also has 3.5 sacks. True Thompson has 2 sacks. So they are obviously are a team who is gonna make it tough for you. They have 58.5 tackles for loss. Um, so they're gonna make it hard for Pine Bluff and their passing attack. And like I said, sometimes Makai Higgins can take bad sacks, or he might put himself in a bad position. And against a defense like this, that's gonna hurt you a lot. Um, Everybody's gonna want to see, Giovanni Gibson do his work. He's a guy who I think he's hands down the best receiver on his team. 44 catches, almost 1,000 yards already in 8 games. 944 yards in 8 games. He'll cross 1,000 Saturday unless JSU clamps him down. He does have 7 touchdowns as well. Uh, Armani Roan and Christian Gamage are 2 other guys who can be factors. Damon Dawkins as well. Those are the 4 guys with double-digit receptions on the season. Now I do like Zamarion Weber running the ball. They still don't really have that solid run game to go with that passing game, but they are game. I think the defense has had a lot of injury issues and depth issues, and to me that's bad news against a defense. I mean, against an offense like this, with a guy like Irv Mulligan who can break the big run at any time. He's on 568 yards and 6 touchdowns in 6 games. Of course, Jacoby Morgan can run the ball. Travis Terrell is a jet. Um, he's a guy who can hit the big play on the ground or in the return game. Um, Jonas Fertillion is the leading receiver right now. Isaiah Spencer also has 20 receptions. Tyquan Henderson is a guy who's been coming on late, and Marvin Landy at tight end has been able to make some plays for this offense as well. And they've been working in Cameron McCoy back into the rotation at quarterback, so that's another set of legs that can cause you problems. And I think JSU, I think this will probably be a little similar to the Bethune game. I think Pine Bluff offensively, they'll be able to make some things happen here and there, and they might be able to make a little bit happen to jump out to an early lead. But I don't think defensively they can hold down that JSU run game, which, like I always say, that opens up their passing game. and I think JSU wins this game going away. I think they win this game 38. I'm gonna say 38-15. I think they win it in pretty, I don't say easy fashion, but I think they win it going away, and they have a nice homecoming victory. One thing about both of these offenses, they can score points though. Pine Bluff is at 27 points per game, almost 28, and Jackson State is at 35 points per game. Like I said, the biggest difference is defense. Pine Bluff gives up 34 points per game. JSU only gives up 22.9. So the most matchups in this game go to JSU, and the win would go to them too. But I do think Pine Bluff will continue to kind of establish themselves as a team to watch in terms of being exciting in the passing game. Now, whether they can learn how to win and finish a game, that's up to debate. But I think JSU gets this win. Our fifth game other day is another homecoming. FAMU takes on TSU Tigers for homecoming in Tallahassee. FAMU played probably their best game of the season defensively. I think offensively they had offensively they had some hiccups that didn't necessarily cost them, but I don't think they played a really really great game offensively. Now they did run the ball a lot better than they have, and they did a good job on defense of slowing down a Southern team that wanted to run the ball. Um, and I think they did a good job with slowing that down. TSU is another team that wants to run the ball. They're coming off of a big victory over Grambling, but their offense is at 19 points per game. FAMU's offense hasn't really hit their stride either. They're only at 20 points per game. And for a long stretch of the game side, it scores 14 to 6. And there was only one offensive touchdown, which came at that point in the game. There was only one offensive touchdown, and that came in the third quarter. So they haven't been able to really make a lot of things happen. TSU defense, I think the defense is pretty underrated. I think they do have a solid defense, but I think they tend to wear down. Both defense are almost even, 26 points per game for FAMU, 27 for TSU. Um, FAMU is at 338 yards of total offense. Texas Southern at 267. I think one of the biggest differences in this game is FAMU being able to pass the ball, and they do it well. TSU defense is actually fourth in total defense at 322 yards per game. FAMU is at 370, although they are coming off of, like I said, a much better defensive effort the previous week. Texas Southern runs the ball for 155 yards per game. FAMU is at 93. And the Rattlers, they have struggled giving up yardage on the ground. They're almost allowing 200 yards per game on the ground. Texas Southern is at 166. FAMU's offense, like I said, they pass the ball extremely well, 245 yards per game, 14 touchdowns. They do have 7 interceptions. Texas Southern doesn't pass the ball really much at all. I think they are the second fewest passing attempts on the season and the second fewest completions, and they only average 112 yards through the air with 4 touchdowns and 4 interceptions. FAMU's pass defense is really good at 173 yards per game. TSU's passing defense is second in the league at 155 yards per game. So that's a good matchup right there. The TSU pass defense against the FAMU pass offense. Um, Texas Southern, they can get, like I said, their defense, they can get pressure on you. They can be stout at times, but I think they tend to kind of wear down if the pressure is put on them late in games. And so they kind of have a hard time maintaining that intensity for a whole game. But third downs have been their Achilles heel on offense, only 31%. The FAMU's 41%. TSU gives a 36% on third down, FAMU 35.7. So these defenses statistically are almost even. Now, on paper, talent wise, I think FAMU defense is better on paper, but they haven't had a lot of success this season. Quintrell Quinn leads the Tigers with 393 yards and 3 touchdowns. Jordan Davis His quarterback who started a couple games. He can come in and run for you. He's second in rushing. Um, he actually was able to throw a pass this past week. And he is the leading passer on the team right now. But Jace Wilson has started the last couple of games. Um, Trenton Leary, Jaron Johnson are two guys who can really, make some things happen for the Tigers through the air. Javis Williams is a solid guy in terms of being a playmaker on defense. And like I said, they have a really solid defensive line that's going to cause some problems for FAMU if the Rattlers can't move the ball on the ground. And I like their backs. I think that defense. I think the running backs are capable. They just haven't really had the attempts to get it done. And they kind of are a team who, like I said, they've fallen into being a passing team. And Daniel Richardson does a good job with that when he's not not having any hiccups, so to speak. Thad Franklin, Kelvin Dean, Bo Somerset, all those guys can run the ball. I mean, they all can run the ball, but they just haven't really been able to make anything happen. They showed some flashes Saturday. I thought they showed some flashes Saturday, and they all average almost 4 yards per carry. So even though they don't run the ball extremely well or they don't run it a lot, they do have guys who are capable of making a big play downfield. They just have to do it consistently. Like I said, Daniel Richardson and Jamari Gassett is a great combination. Um, they scored they hooked up for a touchdown on Saturday. Gassett also had a punt return for a touchdown. When he's a guy, man, when he's feeling it, he's gonna be trouble for your defense. So if you see him bouncing around the sideline, man, you kind of hyped up, you can expect a big play to come from him, and it's probably going to be a touchdown. Ace Cobb, he was kind of quiet on Saturday, but he had a pretty strong couple week stretch. Um, Tight ends, Gross, Carter Johnson, and Jeremiah Pruitt, who kind of finally got some action, are guys who also can make some things happen. Um, Quan Lee at receiver. Also, the backs can catch the ball in the backfield. Franklin and Dean both have 12 receptions on the season. So they have a lot of guys that can make some things happen. And they are tough to defend when they kind of spread you out and they pick you apart. And Daniel Richardson, when he's locked in, he's a quarterback who can really hurt you. Um, the defense has talent. I mean, you have some all conference guys on their defense. James Ash had a pretty solid game last week on the D line. And I think the Rattlers win this game. Like I said, special teams is also a factor for FAMU. Cameron Gillis is a solid kicker. And of course, like I said, Gassett returning punts could be a weapon. I think TSU defensively is going to stay in this game. I think the defense keeps them in this game. But I think FAMU's defense seems to be rounding the corner. Now, I don't know, I don't know how much better they will be by the end of the season, but I think they're rounding the corner a little bit. And I think if their defense can do that and the offense can continue to establish themselves running the ball, they don't have to be a team to run it, 40 times, but if they can run it a few times and hit some big plays and make you kind of have to not, drop off and, control the pass game, you have to worry about the run game, then I think you're gonna have some problems with that team. Um, and I like the Rattlers in this game. I think they win this game. They haven't really had a lot of high scoring games for them this season, but I think they win this game 31-21. I think TSU gonna be in this game. I think it's gonna be a kind of like last year where TSU had an early first half lead and just couldn't close the door, which I think is one of TSU's biggest problems. They did do a good job of closing the door against Grambling last week, but typically they haven't really done that. And I think it's gonna be tough for them until they can be able to do that. But I like FAMU winning this game on homecoming. And then that takes us to our final game of the day, which is our Alcorn and Alabama State hooking up in Mobile. Big game for both teams. Bama State trying to keep pace with JSU, still have a game against JSU on the schedule coming up. They still want to kind of keep themselves connected to FAMU, even though they lost to the Rattlers. You still want to stay connected to them. So you don't want to fall out of the race. I think two losses knocks you out of the East. So I think this is a big game for them. It's a big game for Alcorn. They're sitting on one conference loss, and they're tied with Southern right now. They need to get ahead of Southern. They can't finish tied with Southern. They need to get ahead of them. So they need to win. And I don't think you need to scoreboard watch, but I think they need to win, um, and keep the momentum, get the momentum back that they lost, losing 2 weeks ago to Southern. But this should be a fun game, man. I think Bama State offensively has gotten better the last couple of weeks since they put Kareem Key in at quarterback. Offense numbers are actually pretty good this season. They're scoring 25 points per game. All corners at 20. Um, of course, the Bama State defense is still great, giving up less than 20 points per game. All-corn defense, 29 points per game. Total offense, Bama State and Alcorn are pretty much in the same boat. They're 6 and 7 in total offense. 336 for Alcorn, 319 for Bama State. Bama State defense leads in total defense. Alcorn is sixth. Um, Stop me if you heard this before. Bama State defense leads in rushing. They give up under 90 yards per game. Alcorn is a team that likes to run the ball. They run for 190 yards per game. Something's got to give. Um, Bama State's been strong running the ball too. They're 192 yards per game. And Alcorn's defense has been hit on the ground. They're giving up 193. I think it's important to look at the last outing Alcorn had on defense. They gave up almost 300 yards on the ground. And Bama State's been a team who's came close to or crossed that mark in a game. So it's possible for them to do that. Um, Neither team is spectacular with their passing game, but I do think Bama State's passing game has gotten a little bit of a boost. These past couple of weeks with Kareem Key in the backfield. He basically in two starts, I believe, or three, he is the leading passer on his team. 331 at 51, 524 yards. He has six touchdowns and one interception. So he definitely is a guy that's been able to invigorate this offense. Jamari Holesclaw, Daquan Kinsey, they both are very solid backs. Both of them almost over 400 yards. Um, they're playmakers. They can make some big plays down the field. The receiving core hasn't really been spectacular, but it's almost every week it's a different guy. So they don't necessarily have that go-to guy. Um, and so that kind of makes it tougher for you. But it's also a byproduct of an offense that just hadn't really been good at passing the ball until a couple of weeks ago. Of course, like I said, defensively, they have guys all over the field who can make plays. DeMarcus Cunningham, Rico Dozier, Traquan Thomas, Amon Scarborough, James Burgess. All those guys can make plays in their own right in whatever way they need to. Alcorn is a team. I think they have to run the football to be successful. Um, if they have to throw, I think I think they kind of run into some difficulties there. Xavier Vaughn's a guy who can really run the football. He's a very solid rusher. He leads the team in rushing, um, 19 yards more than Jacorian Sewell. So they have between Sewell and Vaughn, they have 1,000 yards between those two guys and 12 touchdowns. So both of those guys, one's a running back, one's a quarterback, so they're typically going to be on field at the same time. They can make some things happen. Um, and then a guy like Chuck Griffin, who I don't know, he got in a little trouble after the Southern game, but I think he's a guy who can come in and hit for a big play down the field. He had a couple of big runs this season, but he's a really great tight end. He leads the team in receptions and yards, and he doesn't have a receiving touchdown this season. But to me, the passing attack has to continue to develop and get better. Um, Sometimes it's just the decision making, and just making sure that you don't just always take off running. You try to find that guy down the field at times, and get it that way. Now this Alcorn defense, like I said, they aren't spectacular numbers wise. When you look at them numbers wise, they're not. they're not going to wow you with their numbers. Now they are pretty solid against the pass, and they have 10 interceptions on the season. So their defense is opportunistic. I think they had 20 takeaways this season. Um, which is second in the league. So they can turn you over, and they will. They lead the team with 10 fumble recoveries. They have 10 interceptions. Bama State also has 10 interceptions on the season and seven fumble recoveries. So both teams can force turnovers. Bama State 17, Alcorn 21. Alcorn 20. This should be a very good game. It's going to be a physical game. I think this is going to be one of those games where you're going to hear a lot of pass smacking, man. I think both teams want to run the ball. Bama State, the passing offense has been better every week. They have to continue to take that step week in and week out. Alcorn, they're coming in off of a loss. They want to kind of get back to where they were when they had that 3-game win streak. But I think Bama State, I think their defense is a huge difference in a game like this. I think with a team that can run the ball against that defense, I think they're always up to that challenge. And I think they slow you down on the ground and they force you to beat them through the air. And the secondary is really good. So I think this is going to be a low scoring game. I say it's going to be like a 17-14 game. And I think Bama State wins. Um, and they keep themselves in the hunt for the East Division. That's actually going to do it for today's show, man. I thank y'all for tuning in, and we'll catch y'all on tomorrow with Swag Smoke live 6 p.m. Central, 7 p.m. Eastern, and Sunday our Week 10 recap. Will be dropping anytime that afternoon on Sunday. So with that being said, man, I'm your tour guide around the Swag Seawells signing out, and I will catch y'all on the rebound. Peace.